Dr. Kim, I'm so excited about today's podcast episode and just sharing the different things that our spouses have taught us over the years. So Dr. Kim, for you, what is the first thing on your list that Nancy has taught you over the years?
First thing, and I don't have these in particular order, this isn't like, but my first one is to be a better listener. And I think she really did. And I think that really started when we were dating, because we'd talk and she liked us to have dinner and sit there. And so I thought, I got to either learn how to listen to her or I'm going to be bored. So, but I
Absolutely.
think it did. And I think what I saw in her, when I saw that I listened well to her, that drew her to me, it strengthened our relationship. And so I guess that was motivation there. And I don't know that I was a bad listener before, but I don't know if I really listened in a way to connect, especially to a woman before. And I think learning that early in our marriage has helped all the way through. Not that I've been a perfect listener all the way, but I know it's important to her. And she listens well to me too. And so the listening, being a better listener has really been important.
That's awesome. I love that. And has she always been a good listener? Why do you think she has been such a great listener?
She always has been a good listener. I think it's because other people are important to her, and then I think when I became important to her, she listened well to me. But I think that's why she's always had friends and close friends. And I think being a good listener is a big part of that, that people do call her, they always have, about things. And she was a lot of people's first go-to to talk because she does listen well. And she doesn't try to always fix it. She's one of those people that can listen and then kind of go with the flow there. If someone wants her to process with them, she can do that. If they just needed to vent, she can do that. So she's just really got some gifted skills at that. And for me, I think a lot of it's just who she is.
That's awesome. I love that. And her love language too is quality time. Is that right?
Quality time. Yeah.
And so I feel like for a lot of quality time people, like they are just naturally good listeners. Because another way to look at quality time is just like good conversation, I feel like is
Sure.
quality time.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like for all my friends and family who their love language is quality time, like they love to talk, they love to communicate, they love to hear you and for you to hear them. And so that's really cool that she's such a great listener, that you have grown in that. I'm sure that's been handy in your career too, right?
Oh yeah. I think it definitely has as a
Absolutely.
counselor. Absolutely. Because I think, and what I learned in that, so many people don't have anybody to listen to. And really just sometimes as a counselor, I can sit there for an hour with somebody and not say anything. And they think it's the greatest session in the world because somebody was focused on them and listened to them and, was there with them in that. So it's a great skill.
Yeah. And engage with them. That's awesome.
What about you?
The first thing on my list is Dylan has really taught me to assume the best about people. This is something that he's really grown in, especially like over the years. It's something he's been really conscious of, especially like the past 2 years. And I think in ministry, in his experience as a pastor, he's just been really able to see like all sides of people and to see that even when people are being unkind or, not wise or not loving, rarely are they doing it like to intentionally hurt people. And so because he's had this advantage of just seeing all sides of people, he's learned that he can like assume the best in people and not just assume the worst and not be really critical. And it's something that he's really taught me over the years because I can be judgmental. I can be critical.
Sure.
Because I want things to be done a certain way. I want people to behave a certain way and to treat others a certain way. And so, but he's done just a really good job of like when I'm upset with someone or something, he'll ask a good question of just like, well, do you think there might be a reason that they did that? And it just like really like it turns the whole tone of the conversation of like, oh yeah, like they might be hurting or there might be a reason that they did this thing. And it has really served me well to assume the best about people in my relationship. So it's been huge for me.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And just because that's such an important thing. I see that in Dylan, and that the other thing is that you just valued that too. You learned to value that. That's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's the second thing on your list?
Well, it's a little bit the same, but a little bit different, to value differences in people. Nancy really is very accepting, I guess, of all people. I mean, it's not like she just doesn't put people through this critical grid. She just kind of is able to see people as they are. And, I can remember times that somewhat she'd say, well, so-and-so wants us to go to dinner with them. And I'll go, and she'll go, no, it's good for us. They're in, the things that she's good in. I mean, it's always right. I always go and have a good time,
Yeah.
And so I think she has helped me kind of broaden myself in that by valuing that in people. It's interesting. I can do it great in the counseling room, but sometimes outside of that, I don't carry that with me as well. And
Mm.
so I think I've really grown in that. And it's really just because I've seen her do, take chances, not chances, that's probably not the right word, but look for opportunities with people and not back off because they may be different or whatever, or think different or feel different or look different or things like that. That doesn't block her at all.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool. And how have you seen like the fruit of like adapting that philosophy of hers in your life?
Oh, I think it's helped me with being less critical for
Mm.
sure. And I think, and I really, not that I was, well, yeah, I was pretty critical, and I'm not as much now. And the other thing I think I see myself do now, if I start to be critical of someone, I catch myself pretty quick and think, and try to look past that. Why am I being critical? Why am I even doing this? So I think it's helped me. And then I think it's also helped me engage in some relationships that I probably wouldn't have otherwise because
Yeah.
the differences were there, and see the value in those relationships.
Yeah. I love that. The way I look at it is it kind of expands your life and like your worldview
Yes.
too, right? To just accept people who think differently than you, vote differently than you,
Right.
all of those things. And to be able to see things from a different angle, just like it widens your wisdom, it widens your experience, it widens your worldview, it widens, yeah, all of it, and just helps you, yeah, to see people where they're at. And even if it doesn't change your mind about where you stand on certain topics and issues, you can still see how they got there, which is there's so much fruit in that, and in loving people across all spectrums.
Yes. No, exactly. And knowing that, I think we can limit. I see some people that limit themselves. Everybody they want to be around has to think like they do, vote like they do, all those kind of things. And I think we put ourselves in a box there and miss out on a lot. I can learn if somebody's going to vote different than me. I want to understand that. I want to understand what they see. I can learn from that, and it's helped me value some things maybe in other people that I wouldn't have otherwise. So yes, I think it's. I don't know why we don't. Sometimes we get so narrow, or we're afraid to have different opinions. I think it's so valuable
Yeah, that's
because most
good.
of the people we're around, not all of them, are Christians or say they're Christians or go to church. So it's not like, we're somebody's got a different thing and they're, serial killers or something. No, these
Yeah,
are nice people.
I know. And I feel like as Christians too, that's kind of the hardest is like, as Christians, I think sometimes we're the worst at loving each other, which is like
Yes.
so weird, and weird that we do that, and hypocritical, and, out of line. And the fact is that Jesus loved people who are very different from
Yeah.
him, constantly. I mean, he was radical in his day and age. And so what does it look like for us to do that? And it sounds like Nancy has taught you to live like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting you said that because that's what I always come back to. Look at the people that Jesus hung out with, from the disciples to a prostitute to,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. And he that didn't bother him. He looked at their hearts and he looked at what was the potential was there. And man, we need to do that in people.
Yeah, that's good. The second thing that Dylan has taught me is Dylan has really taught me to take risk. So he really trusts God and he takes risk. And as a leader, he's just more comfortable with risk than I am. He's an 8 on the Enneagram, so he's a challenger. He's more comfortable with a healthy level of risk in his life. And without him, I would not be brave enough to take risks on my own, for sure. We have taken a lot of risks just financially, generosity wise, with church stuff, with ministry, with people, that I wouldn't have if it wasn't for Dylan's leadership. And so now that I have seen that, 9 years later, though, into being with Dylan and being married to Dylan, I have seen that when we take risks together, it works out like 90% of the time. And so I'm so much more comfortable with risk now than I ever was before. And I feel like it's made me a better leader here at Awesome Marriage. I feel like it's made me a better friend. It's made me a better advocate in the church to be comfortable with some risk instead of always trying to play it safe.
That's really good. And I just see that in Dylan when I've been around him. Even when he has fun, he's kind of a
Mhm.
risk taking fun guy. He's
Yes, he
gonna
is.
he's gonna stretch the limits, and and you've chosen to go along with that, and look what has gone on in your guy's life because he was willing to take risk, and you were willing to support him in that.
Hmm. Yeah.
From the church to giving to all kinds of things like that. So again, it's just cool that we, probably before Dylan, would you have thought about, I want to marry somebody that takes risks? Maybe not because you don't,
For sure. No.
but you did. And
Hmm.
now, and you can see the value in it now. That's
Yeah,
cool.
that's cool. What about the third thing for you? What's the third thing that
Uh,
Nancy has taught you?
to have more compassion for people. And
Mm.
I think that in a broader sense, because when I work with people, I get very compassionate for them. I really get involved with them. But just in general, and not only does she have compassion, but like she tutors in probably the most difficult inner city school in the Oklahoma City metro area. But that's where she wants to be. She doesn't want to go to suburban school. This probably didn't sound, whatever that word,
Mhm.
a school in the suburbs
Yeah. Mhm.
that, people come from middle class. She wants to go down there where she knows she's making a difference, and she loves those kids and they love her. And I see her do that with minorities. I see her do that all the time. And I think it's just helped me maybe look at people a little bit different that in that way. And it's not like differences in people. I'm just talking about different, maybe ethnic groups, levels of income, or people that are just struggling and seeing the value in that. She took me a deal one time, and it was a project with a middle school that they were really it was a KIP school. And so they were trying to get these kids that are come from low income, that kind of stuff, and give them a chance. And I was so glad I went to that, because I saw in those kids that once they were given the chance, the potential and their excitement about what they were doing. And so she's broadened things, and that's not something I would have gone to,
Yeah. Mm.
and going with her and experiencing those things. So I think that has helped me be maybe more like Jesus in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like what she has done is she has made other people's problems her problems, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what compassion is.
Yeah.
It's looking at other people and like saying, "Hey, your problem is my problem because this is the kingdom of God, and I'm going to love and care for you." And so I love that about Nancy. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, we get like, so we give to, and we both agree, we give to Compassion International. We have 2 kids we adopt, but I finally, I started trying to steal things out of the mail before she saw it, because we'd be given
She has this bleeding
everything.
heart.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we need to get this. We're giving something like that. No, this one's real, so.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
But
What do
it
you
is.
think made her that way? What made her so compassionate for others?
I think part of it was just, I think probably some of the ways she grew up, some of the things that maybe weren't in her life that she wanted to be in her life. And I just think she's just got this tender heart,
Mm.
and I think because of some of the life experiences of growing up in an alcoholic home, that could have been squelched, or it could have been, but I think it drove her more to that, to be more, that was maybe a escape in some ways
Yeah.
of caring about others and being able to, something you couldn't control at home, but I can go out there and help others. I can be involved in other people's lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. For me, the third thing on my list that Dylan has taught me is he has taught me to be more generous in extravagant ways, and to be really intentional in where we give. Like for me, I think, early on in marriage, I wanted to like buy our friends dinner or get our friends' kids a birthday present. And Dylan's like, no, no, no. Like our friends can pay for their own dinner. Our friend's kid has a million toys. Like what we have to say no to some things so that we can say yes to things that really matter, to help the single mom who's struggling to put food on the table for her kids, to help someone who's homeless, to help people who are really hurting, someone with crazy medical expenses. We have to say no to some things so that we can be extravagant in other ways. And yeah, some of the things that he has done and encouraged us to do with our finances to love other people well have just been really extravagant. And I never would have thought to give that kind of money away or to give that kind of huge
Yeah.
thing away. But what I've seen in our lives from that is just how God has used that and how it has been a blessing to give and how God has always still taken care of us. I think for me, growing up not having much money, I kind of felt like, oh well, we got to protect ourselves, like we got to think about our future, like we got to think about retirement, we got to think about our kids having good experiences, because I didn't have the best experience growing up. I didn't get to go to the camps, I didn't get to do the fun things because we didn't have money. And so I want that for our kids, but he's just so good at focusing on those that are less fortunate and just again being generous in crazy ways. And we've just seen a lot of fruit in our life from that.
That's so good. I love that about him. I think it's something that most of us in our culture I think we struggle with that a lot, the generosity. And I think there's people like Dylan and Nancy that I think are really very extravagant in that. And I like being around it. And I think for me, being more generous, um, it's made my life better.
Absolutely.
It really it's made me a better person. It makes you look at money totally different than our culture does.
Yeah. Yeah. And something I've heard said before is you'll never go broke giving stuff away. Like that's just like you've never heard of someone who's like, oh yeah, I'm bankrupt and I have no money and I'm living on the streets because I was very generous. Like I just don't really
Right?
see that happening,
No. And
Yeah, and you can't
yeah,
outgive God, you know?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
good. What about number 4 on your list, Dr. Kim?
This kind of interesting. How to love her well. She
Mm.
has taught me how to love her.
Did she give you a handbook?
Yeah, she kind of did. Well, what I see in counseling a lot, I see people that expect their spouse to know how to love them and then get mad if they don't love them that way. And Nancy was always so good about saying, this makes me feel loved. This makes me cared for. This is something you can do for me, not in a demanding way or controlling way. It was just information. And then when I'd see the fruit of it, when I'd say, okay, this is important to her, so I can do that. So I think, and I would just say that to men and women both, let your spouse know how they can love you well, because I've seen the fruit of it in our marriage. And I think it probably helped me first get in touch with what I needed in love, because I don't think I was as much in touch with that as she was, especially around our marriage, and then be able to communicate that to her. And she, obviously, because she wanted me to do that for her, she was very willing to do that for me. And I think that was a big part of our growth in our marriage, learning how to love each other. And it really started with her, I think, showing me how to love her well.
Yeah. And that might sound like selfish at like face level, but it really isn't, because how kind of her to tell you what she needs and to
Absolutely.
communicate that, because then she's not being disappointed when you failed her, you know, and she's not expecting you to read her mind. And so it really is very kind and loving to communicate how you need to be loved to your spouse. And what I
Absolutely.
love about that too, Dr. Kim, is it sounds like, yeah, what a cool fruit that not only did you learn to love her well, but then you went on this path of self-discovery to figure out what you needed,
Exactly.
you know, and how healthy that is.
And I think as guys in general, we don't do that very well.
Mhm.
We think about, oh, well, if she just has sex with me, that everything's gonna be okay. But there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so yeah. And
absolutely.
so I think guys taking time to know what really, how can she emotionally support me? What are those things that really make me feel loved and cared for?
Yeah. And it's okay if one of those things is sex, but there's going to be more to
Right.
it than that,
No, you
guys.
can't. Exactly. Oh yeah, well, definitely. But I
Yeah.
think sometimes as guys we think that's what
You
I
stop
thought.
there.
Thought if
Mhm.
our sex life is good, that solves all the problems we'll ever have in the world.
Yeah. And that's
No,
not true.
not true. Not true.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. The fourth thing for me that Dylan has really taught me is to care less about what other
Mm,
people think. So, and that's just something that I've seen him model really well. So, you know, people will give him criticism or have, say an unkind thing to him, or like, you know, you can't, especially in leadership, like you can't please everybody. And it really used to affect me when people didn't love what we did or love the decisions that we made. But he's just so good. And it's just kind of in him and in his nature to not really care what people think. The way he looks at it is like, no, I've got to make the good and wise choice, like regardless of what other people think. And obviously I'm trying to please God and I'm trying to live with integrity, but apart from that, like it only depends on me so much, other people's view of me. And so I'm not going to stay awake at night wondering what people think of me, because it just doesn't matter. It matters what God thinks of me.
right.
And just watching him live that out in daily life, and like not letting things just like roll off his back and just don't phase him. And over time, it has taken years, but I feel like I've kind of adopted that as well. And it's been really fruitful, especially learning that before becoming a pastor's wife, because
Yeah.
there's a lot that comes with that. And I think it's just been such a valuable skill that I've learned from him.
Oh, I think so too. And I think you're right in the position that you guys are in. I mean, you could be spinning all the time if you weren't able to do that. And realize, I love what Dylan. You can't please everybody. That's a struggle for me. I mean, I would identify more with you on that. It's I want to please everybody. I want everyone to like me. All those kind of things. And I think obviously being a ministry, you realize you don't.
Hmm.
And you've got to make sure. I think your focus has to be, what does God want me to do? And if you're focused on that, then you got to kind of let those other things bounce off of you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And so what about you? What's the fifth thing on your list that Nancy has taught you?
To love God's word.
Mm,
Nancy's been in Bible study our whole marriage. She was in the word more than I was early, still is, but she loves it. She learns from it. She shares from it. She lives her life from it, not in a, you'll never see her beat somebody over the head with scripture, but just the lifestyle she has and what's important to her, that has how God has molded her for having that love for his word. And I think seeing that in her has made me want to, for the last probably 10 years now, we've read through the Bible together every year, those kind of things. That I really didn't have that love for it before, honestly. And seeing that in her and what it did in her life, I think, and she wanted me to read it with her. She wanted me a part of that with her. And I see the value in it.
That's awesome. And I hope that that's encouraging to other people who are listening, because I think a lot of times most wives want their husband to be the one that's the spiritual leader and that loves God's word more. But how cool that God worked in your story, even though she valued it more and took it more seriously than you. And now you both take it seriously and you both love God's word, that it's okay for a woman to love God's word. And we should be theologians as women. We shouldn't just be gathering information from our pastors who are teaching us God's word. We should be in the word daily, as well-watered women who know God's word and live out God's word. And it's important for us to be theologians too. So I love that about Nancy. Get it,
No,
girl.
yeah, and I think as we have a trouble, I think, defining what is being a leader. And I think, to me, being a leader is encouraging my wife in reading the Bible, those kind of things. If she's ahead of me in that, great. That's no problem at all. I love it. And that I can learn from her and we can learn from each other. And I think part of really being a leader is allowing those things and encouraging those things in your family. That doesn't mean
Absolutely.
you're the one who's got to be standing up every night reading the Bible and, all that kind of stuff. No, it's that you encourage and have that kind of atmosphere in your home. And that you see that you can lead, you can learn from your spouse. I mean, our wives, Nancy has insight and wisdom in ways that I don't have.
Yeah, that's good. And I agree with you. I think we get into trouble if we want to put spiritual leadership in a box and think it only looks one way. And that's just not what leadership is. On
No,
any team, if someone's thriving and someone does something really well, you don't say, "Hey, stop doing that. I'm the one who's supposed to be doing that as a leader." You let the people go,
right.
you run the
Yes.
race and say, "You rock at that," and you encourage them and and initiate it and love on that
Yep.
and encourage them to do to run that hard. You don't say, "No, I need to take this over because I'm the leader." You
Yep.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, the fifth thing for me is similar to the last thing that I shared about Dylan, but Dylan has really taught me that making decisions based on what other people think is foolish. So you have to make the wise choice,
Mm.
whether people agree with it or not, or whether people will like it or not. I think for a long time, I would try to make decisions about our family, about ministry, about our kids based on what other people would think, like just like small things like, oh, well, we shouldn't, do this because so and so is not going to like it. Like we shouldn't do this with our kids because so and so is going to think this about that. And he's like, but what do you want to do? And what do you think is best for our kids? And so I'd say the answer and he'd be like, well, then you should do that. But I'm like, oh, but people aren't going to like that. And he's like, well, you're trying to make a decision for your family. Why are you trying to include everybody else in on that decision and get their opinions of it and pull it? Like, it doesn't matter what your neighbor thinks about how you're going to school your child,
Right.
you have to make decisions based on what is right, not what everyone else is going to think. And that has been a hard lesson for me to learn. But again, I've seen so much fruit of it. And especially when it comes to leadership, again, here at Awesome Marriage and in the church, just knowing that I shouldn't make decisions based on what other people think.
That's so good. And I think it's so important in our culture with social media, because like it's so easy, if you're prone to that, to think that, to filter everything through. What are they going to think if they know I did this with my kids? Or, oh my gosh, we didn't start Roman into baseball at 3 and
Yeah.
he's never going to be a baseball player. No, we made a decision. We made a decision that our kids can only play one sport at a time and things like that, that you make those decisions that are right for your family. And I think the pressure that comes from social media really is something that we all have to just not let that's not your guide. That's not
Yeah.
how you run your family, by what other people are looking and thinking and saying. And if you post something that they're gonna think, oh, they're gonna think that we didn't do things right. No, you do what's right for your family. And so I love that you said that, and Dylan's influence in that, and that I think it's something in our culture today more than ever. It's really important. I think
Yeah.
in the past it probably was more with pleasing parents or siblings and that. Now we've got you got the world out there that's
Yeah.
looking at you.
Yeah. 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 It is interesting. Dylan was just saying the other night how, in years past, we used to really care what our parents thought of us, and now it's our friends.
Yeah.
And so that the respect and the honor has kind of flipped from parentals to peers, which is weird and a weird dichotomy, but it's also like what we're dealing with and what we have, like it is the reality of the fact.
Well, then you guys are you're very visible now. You're
Hmm.
pastors of a church.
Hmm.
And so people look at you in a way now that they didn't 3 years ago.
Yeah. Hmm. It's
And so,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. What about your sixth thing on your list that Nancy
Uh,
taught you?
the importance of a couple praying together. I
Mm,
mean, People have heard the story 100 times how she's the reason we started praying on our wedding night. And I think I valued it because of that. But if she hadn't started that on our wedding night, I mean, I hope at some point we would have picked it up, but I don't know when that would have been. I don't think it would have been as early as it was. And just how, looking at that first 6, 7 years of our marriage, when we're trying to figure so much out, we're struggling a lot, that praying together consistently, I think, was the anchor that got us through all that. And
Yeah.
so, her bringing that to the marriage, and then I think from that, God helping me learn to value that. And looking back, I can say of everything we've done in marriage, that's the most significant thing we've done.
Absolutely. And how cool that she was the one who started that. And the fruit of
Yep.
that is exponential. Pray. I mean, it's the best thing you can do for your marriage and for
Yeah.
your life is to pray. And so the fact that she started that. So, what do you think made her so conscious of that and so proactive about praying?
Well, Nancy always has sought out the wisdom of mentors. And so when I had no idea what was going on from the time we got engaged. She had a lady she was meeting with in Houston. And the one thing that I think the last time they met, she told her, remember, the most important thing you can do, you've got to pray every day with your spouse.
Mm,
And she took that like it was written in stone.
yeah.
And I mean, so yeah, I mean, it right before we're getting ready to make love for the first time,
Yeah.
you know,
She stopped you.
he stops and goes, "We need to pray." And and so I mean, it was that significant and important to her, and it just made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. For me, the sixth thing that Dylan has really taught me, it's kind of a silly one, but it's been huge for us, is to take vacations. So he took vacations as a kid and really values them, just the quality of time that you can spend with your family, away from your normal routines. But for me growing up, not having a lot of money, it was just not something we ever did. And Dylan, from the very beginning of our marriage, was just like, no, we're going to budget for this, even if it means like, the vacation's going to cost $80 and we're going to like go stay at a friend's house and just like eat
Yeah,
out once. Like we are going to take vacations because these are memories. And these are things and memories that we're going to want to have and be able to look back on. And it helps build the foundation for our marriage and our relationship and our family.
yeah,
And so we have taken a vacation every year since we've been married. And it's been, they've been cheap vacations, but they've been really good. And when I've wanted to just kind of say like, oh, like we should probably just like cancel that budget line item. We shouldn't save for that this month. We've got these other things going on. He's been really adamant of, no, we are going to do this. This matters. We'll cut something else before we cut this. And again, it doesn't have to be an extravagant vacation, but
sure.
time away with your family is important. And we've had so much fun. We've had so much fun before we had kids when it was just the two of us building memories together. And now with our kids, we've had so much fun just building memories, and the kids look forward to it. And it's just been really a great thing for our family.
I think that's so cool that he valued that, because I think a lot of times guys don't. We get so
Hmm.
focused on our work, and that he valued that, and that made that such a priority. Because yeah, if I look back, with kids, without kids and stuff, the times when you're away, you have no distractions. You can focus on each other. You can focus on your family. Some of our best trips growing up were when we had some friends that had a condo in Breckenridge, and they would let us use it every year. So we still had to buy lift tickets and all that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
but those, because we were together as a family, and we're in the cabin together, all those kind of things that you just get away from the world, and you can, I think, just really grow together, grow as a family. And vacations is one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dylan's been really adamant about on these vacations, we don't work.
Yeah.
And again, I think not everybody's great at that, especially in our culture today where we just want to go, go, go. And it feels like we can never take a break. And I feel that too, because it
Yep.
piles up while you're gone. It's
Yep.
like, should I even take a vacation? Because the email's just going to pile up and all the work's going to pile up. It's not like things stop because you decided to take a vacation. But
Right.
he has just really seen the healthiness and God's design of Sabbath and rest and vacation, is a part of those healthy rhythms, I believe, of taking an extended break from work. And so it's just been really good for our mental space, and our spiritual lives to be able to take a break from that. And so I've really respected and admired him, even as a leader, even as a pastor, these past 3 years. He still takes vacation when he could easily say like, well, I can't, we got too
Right.
much going on. I'm supposed to be leading this thing. But he has taken it really seriously and done that. And it's been really good for us.
No, I think that's good. Yeah, I can remember early on in the church, he took a Sunday off pretty early, it
Oh
seems
my
like.
gosh. Yeah. I think it was like 3 months in or something like
Yeah,
that.
like
Yeah.
that. And I thought, that is so cool. I mean,
Hmm.
just that he knew the value of that and what it did for him and for you guys together. It's just
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
It's
It's good
really
stuff.
good.
So what about you? What is the seventh
Number
thing?
7, to be unselfish.
Mm.
She's so unselfish, and to where like then when I am selfish, it's like it just makes me feel so bad because she's I can't think of hardly anything where she has been selfish or where she, um, she probably could list things because she can be hard on herself, but I don't, and so I think I love that in her. I think it's helped me certainly in our relationship to be more unselfish. I think it's the thing I struggle with more than anything else is selfishness.
Mhm.
Look at my list. I sound like some jerk heathen.
But
But
Nancy sounds great.
this woman has just made me, which is probably true. God, I was thinking now, what would I be without her? God would have just
Absolutely.
said, yeah, I'm not using you, buddy. You just get
Mhm.
out of here. And so, I do value that. I think it's helped me in a lot of ways. Yeah, I was pretty selfish. Yeah,
Mhm.
I still can be, but I've grown a lot in that. And when you're married to someone that's pretty much unselfish all the time, you just, I don't know. I couldn't be selfish and do that,
Yeah.
you
So is
know,
that how she taught it for you, just by modeling it,
by
and then it makes you
modeling.
feel
Yeah.
gross
No,
because you were
she didn't. No, she never told that you're so selfish. No,
Mhm.
I don't think she ever said that. Uh, she just let me figure it out on my own, kind of,
Yeah.
or not, maybe not saying those words, but just kind of with what happened to help me see that.
Yeah.
And
I think
so,
there's a lot of wisdom in what you just said there. I think sometimes what I have learned, and it took me a long time to learn this, is that sometimes I want to fix Dylan, certain things about him. And the best thing I can do is just be quiet and pray,
yep,
and let him figure it out on his own instead of feeling like I always got to fix him and have some critical feedback for him, because then he feels defeated. And I have just seen God work in that when I just I intercede on the behalf of my husband with God and the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit shows up and does a work in him, and how
that's,
awesome that is to
yeah.
not have to feel like I need to be the one to say something, you know?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, if Nancy would, or anybody, if you say something, somebody says, "You're so selfish," what are you gonna say? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
yeah,
Get
that's not gonna go
defensive.
anywhere. You get defensive, and then you're in an argument or something, and you don't hear a thing they're saying. But just praying for me, helping me to see that, being modeling it, that's what made the difference.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What about number so I guess it's my turn for number
It's
7,
you.
right? You
It's
did
number
7. All right.
7.
So number 7 for me is a real practical one, but Dylan taught me to budget. So as
Mm.
soon as we got engaged, he was like, "Here's a budget. You got to start tracking every penny that you spend if you're going to marry me." And I was like, "Whoa, what is
What
this?"
is this, huh?
And I thought I was good with money until I got on a budget, and then I was like, "I've been terrible with money actually.
Yeah.
I just wasn't tracking it and paying attention to where my money was going."
Mm.
And the impact of this on our life has been huge. I mean, a lot of couples struggle with money and fight about money. I can count on one hand the amount of arguments that we've had over money because we sit down, we talk about it, we come to a consensus together about what to do with our money. And so the only time an argument is going to arise is if we disagree, in which case we got to work it out, or if
Right.
we don't follow through with a budget, in which case the sin is, and the guilt is like, it's there. It's understandable. It's not some like theoretical thing where we're like, oh, I don't know, it's subjective. Whose fault is it? It's like, no, Christina, because it's always me. You overspent and you
Yeah.
weren't supposed to. So I then have to apologize. And it's very clear that I'm the one who needs to apologize. And I can accept responsibility for that and
Yeah.
apologize. And so the fights and the arguments have just been so minimal, and to be on the same page and just, it probably took me like a year to really see the fruit in budgeting, because I was just like, this seems like a lot of work and I just want to
Right.
be able to do what I want to do. But then being able to go on vacations when we shouldn't have been able to go on vacations, being able to pay for our cars when they broke down, when we didn't make enough money to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But when you tell your money where to go and when you save, and just being able to see how much we could do on so little was huge. And it was thanks to budgeting and Dylan's wisdom with that. And so it's been so great for us to have a budget and to stick to it, this whole time. It's been really good.
You guys have been married how many years now? 7?
9.
9 years.
Isn't
Okay.
that crazy? We're
And to
so
think,
old.
well, no, but and to think that you've had maybe one fight about money when
Mhm.
that's the number one thing usually the couples
Mhm.
fight about. And I think the answer is just what you had a husband that was willing to be proactive in that, and you were willing to work with him. And it wasn't like he was dominant. He said, "We got to have budgets. We got to do this," but then he included you in it, and you guys did it
Absolutely.
together. And that's a picture, I think, of what we want people to do in marriages. And just your testimony there of, we fought once about money in nine
Yeah.
years.
Mhm.
Okay, guys, if there's anybody listening out there that can say that, and you haven't budgeted, haven't done any of that thing, yeah, And
Yeah, we
either
wanna
that
hear
or
about it.
you're billionaires, and like,
Yeah.
whatever that
Well, even
stuff.
that, I think when
I
you have a
know.
lot of money, that brings a lot of stress. Like, I do not envy those with lots of money. That is a lot of
It
pressure.
can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, it caused a lot of problems. And I think too, one of the things that made this so easy for us and made budgeting work so well for us is Dylan's wisdom in knowing we had to compromise. So he's smarter with money. He had been budgeting for money since he was 5. His parents gave him allowance and
Wow.
he budgeted money because his dad taught him to do that.
Yeah.
And so he had all this experience budgeting. But even though he was the one who had all this knowledge, he didn't say, "Here's what we're going to do, Christina." He asked for my advice. He asked for my feedback. He let me be a part of it, and he compromised. Like, he would never spend money in his life if it was up to him, except for like literal essentials. Whereas for me, I want to have fun, and so he
Yeah.
knew that. So I have a coffee budget. We have an eating out budget, and that's for me. I'm the one who wants to go do those things, not
Yeah.
him. But he was wise enough to know, even when we were like, not making a lot of money at the very beginning of our marriage, and in school and had all this stuff going on, he still knew it was going to be important to have fun and for me to have like a fun little budget. It was small, but he knew it was important, even if it
Legit.
meant we were going to Taco Bell for dinner.
Right. But
And
you're going
so
out.
we were going out. And so having wisdom, I've seen a lot of couples, they'll have a budget, but where they get into trouble is they're not willing to hear each other and respect each other's needs in
Yep.
that. It can't just be one person's way. You have to meet in the middle. You have to compromise and communicate those things and let the fun person have some fun.
Well, and I think that's why you hear Dave Ramsey talk. He says always put money in there for recreation. Always have some money in there. Each one of you can spend on your own. Those kind of things. Because I think where I see couples get in trouble is where the husband intentions are great, but he makes a budget and he doesn't consult his spouse, and then he's rigid with it, and she feels like he's not listening to me, or I have to ask him for everything, and that's going to cause some distance. What happened in yours? It drew you closer to Dylan.
Yeah,
We have a
definitely.
budget. We get to go on vacation because of that budget. He's given me money that he knows me well enough to make sure there's money for me to do things I want to do. That's huge.
Yeah. And he was sacrificial in it too. So, early on, he was just like, when we didn't have a lot of entertainment money, he gave me a coffee budget. He doesn't even like coffee. So he wasn't using that coffee budget. He gave it to me. He didn't have a gaming budget or a, donut budget. He loves
Yeah,
donuts. He didn't have an ice cream budget. He had a budget for me. So he was selfless in that, and sacrificial.
that's so cool.
Yeah. It's good
I
stuff.
like that
He's like,
guy.
I know he's the best, isn't he? All right. The final
My
thing.
final one is to love the beach. Nancy, growing up in Houston, went to Galveston her whole life, and I had never been around the beach. The summer before we got engaged, it was the first time I'd gone to the beach, and the way her family would go with having a house that they would rent, and learning how to catch crabs, learning all that kind of stuff, and the fun of that, the family part of that, and we did that every year for years. Our kids grew up going to the beach every week, every summer with their cousins and stuff like that. And now, when we start planning a vacation, a beach is in there every year somewhere, just because we both great memories and creating new memories, and just something that I love the lake. We'd been lake people all my growing up, but to add in to learn to love the beach was great. And it's just something we share together.
That's awesome. I love that. And again, just building memories for you and Nancy and for your
Yep.
family. That is just huge. And the beach is a fairly inexpensive thing to do because the
Yeah.
actual beach is free. Public beaches are free. So it's like
Right.
you can do that every day and not have to spend money on a water park or Disneyland or whatever it may be.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's awesome. I love it. The last one for me is actually something that I've learned about Dylan recently. I have learned that you can be angry and not sin. So Dylan is an 8 on the Enneagram, which means he deals with a lot of anger, but you would never know that. You would never guess that about Dylan if you knew him. And it was something I didn't even know until this past year when we learned about the Enneagram, is that he walks around like angry about things. And like sometimes a righteous anger, like, he cares about justice and things like that. But
Yeah.
he never yells. He never cusses. I've never heard him raise his voice, unless he was shouting at like excitement at a basketball game. Like, never heard him angry, shouting, raising his voice. He never gets an attitude with people. And so the fact when I learned that he like deals with anger on a regular basis, I was like, what? Like, you're never angry. And he was like, well, you can be angry and not sin. And I was like, whoa. And like the Bible says that, like, be angry and do not sin.
It didn't come up with himself, but
Yeah, he didn't come
but
up
he
with it.
lives it.
But he lives it. And there's a
Yeah.
level of self-control that he has learned to have over his life, and the integrity that he has with that, that he can walk around angry, sometimes righteous, sometimes not, but choose not to sin is just, it's blowing my mind. And so it's something I'm working on. I have not figured it out yet, but just knowing that he can have that level of self-control encourages me that it is something I can work on. I can have more self-control. I can be nice to insurance people on the phone and to customer service people when they're mean, or when they don't do what they're supposed to do. I'm learning. I have not perfected it yet, but just knowing that you can be angry and not sin is just huge.
It's interesting how things like that in the Bible, that God's not going to put something in the Bible that we can't do, that He
Hmm.
didn't equip us to do. And so I think that to me is such an important verse, especially in our culture where you see road rage, people get mad all the time. That and the scripture, it's be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The
Hmm.
wisdom in those, and how that can change relationships and how it affects you. When we're angry in sin and we're yelling and screaming, that doesn't do much good for us.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Get your heart rate up. It can, all those kind of
It's
negative
bad for
things
your
that don't,
health. Hmm.
bad for your health. And so there's so much wisdom in the Bible, and I just admire that in him.
That's so fun. I love it. Do you think our spouses will listen to this episode since it's
I,
all about them?
I don't know. I like
They don't ever listen to
probably,
the other ones, so I don't know.
yeah,
We'll find out.
yeah, I
I'll have
know.
to send it to them.
Nancy thinks I never say anything that she hadn't heard before. So
Well, which is probably true.
this,
Maybe
yeah,
this one will be the
this will be
exception.
different when I haven't put them all together like that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll make sure I send it to her and you can send this to
Okay.
Dylan.
I will.
So I have a few other questions for us. This has been so
Sure.
fun. There is this sanctifying piece of marriage. Sanctification is just a fancy word that means to make you more like God, the process of becoming holy, which is set apart. Dr. Kim, how has marriage sanctified you, since we're talking all about learning and growing?
Yeah, I would have to go back to the unselfishness. I think when we look at Jesus, what an unselfish person he was when he walked here on this earth, and the way he treated people, how he put people before himself, how he served. And so I think that whole deal, from me being a pretty selfish, I mean, there were two of us in the family. My sister's 8 years younger, so I really grew up as an only child, and I was the first grandchild, and I was the center of attention. I mean, it really was, and I think that was great, and I loved it. But I think it taught. I became a lot of selfishness out of that, and so I think how God has used Nancy to help me work out of that. I would say that's made me. That's probably the biggest thing I would say.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think for me, I honestly don't think I thought I was a sinner until I got married. Like I knew I was a sinner before I got saved, but after I got saved, I was so good at following the rules, man. I didn't
Yeah,
think a lot about my own sin after getting saved. But then marriage came along, and marriage really helps you see your own sin like never before. So in that sense, marriage has been super sanctifying for me, of just being so aware. I remember that first year of marriage, I was just like, man, I am the worst. Like, how did this? I just felt like I was put in a pressure cooker, and all my sin was just like bubbling up over the surface and toppling all over to Dylan and all over our home. And so, yeah, I really was able to see my own sin, which helped me pray and ask God to change me and just be aware of it and trying to practice the fruits of the Spirit, and
yeah.
yeah, stop sinning and repenting and turning to God and begging for His help, because I saw that I was a sinner for the first time after being saved once I got married.
That's so good. Yeah, and I think it is. Isn't it interesting how if we have to check the boxes, we think that we're a great sinner, but then relationships is what really lets it come out and
Yep.
and shows us, okay, we've got some things to work on here. We got to figure out more of what God wants us to do in these situations.
Yeah, especially that intimate relationship of
Yeah,
marriage where they're
yeah,
in your home. You
yeah.
can
They're in
hide
your
from
bed. They're
them.
in
They're
your
in your bed.
bathroom.
Exactly. They're your
Yeah.
they're your roommate and your spouse. And so, yeah, absolutely very
Oh
sanctifying.
yeah. When we
Mhm.
first got married, I followed her around like a puppy dog. I just thought she was so cute, and I loved everything. I never lived with a girl. I thought everything she did was good. I'd be in the closet with watching her dress and
Yeah, all the
pick things
things.
out, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Mhm.
so it's
Didn't
definitely
leave
an
her
intimate
alone.
relationship.
Yes, definitely. So, do you think most couples are growing and learning from each other on a regular basis?
I've thought about that. So I'm going to say yes and no. I think we do always learn, but I don't think we always pay attention, and we don't always take what we learn and put it into action. So I think to grow, we've got to be aware of things and learn and put things into action. And I think I see a lot of couples that don't. They may see the opportunity there, but they don't take advantage of it. And I think the healthy thing is that you do grow and you do learn from each other, and you look at it like, this is a gift God gave me. This person is different for a reason, And looking back, now I can say and I've known that for a long time. My life is so much better because she's been a part of it. I'm so much better a person. I think I'm more of who God created me to be. And if I hadn't valued those things in her, I'd probably still be the same like I was.
Absolutely. I
And
agree. I
she'd be
think
gone.
yeah, bye.
See ya.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in order to be learning and growing from each other, you have to live this integrated life. And so I think
Yep.
there's a lot of temptation to live separate lives, and you can
Yep.
totally do that. You can be married and live separate lives, and you're not going to learn and grow and be made holy by each other if you're living separate lives. But if you decide to live this unified life that's integrated and built on unity like God wants us to, then you will absolutely learn and grow from each other if you're paying attention, like you said, Dr. Cam. And I think another thing that some of us just don't pay attention to is if we are living this integrated life, I think sometimes we don't take the time to sit down and think about the ways that our spouse has changed us and what we have learned from them, and take the
Right.
time to thank them and point out the ways that they have impacted us. So that's why I wanted to do this episode, was for us to sit down and think about it and be grateful for it, but then also for everyone listening to maybe do the same. Maybe spend 30 minutes in prayer this week and think about the ways your spouse has made your life better and impacted you and what they have taught you, and then share it with them so that they can be built up.
I love that. I think it's such a good thing, and something we could do with so many deals in the business of our lives, to take some time every week to sit down and just think through something like that, and then and to think about ourselves, to think about things that we don't take time to think about. And then, like my pastor says, if you think it, say it. So if you think something good about your spouse, tell them what you've thought, or hey, heard this on the podcast, and I sat down today and I just prayed, and look at my list that I think about you.
Yeah,
Share that
that's
with each
good.
other. What
Yeah.
can that do for your marriage?
Yeah, that's good. If you think something good, share it. Not if you just
Right,
think anything.
right. Yeah,
That's what he says.
she looks fat in those jeans. No, you don't
No,
say that,
no,
right?
don't.
No,
You don't have to say everything that you
right.
think. If you think something good, say it.
Thank you.
That's what
Thanks
Craig
for
says.
that
Yeah,
clarification, because I might have given somebody some license there that
exactly. I
they
don't want to
didn't
get
need.
anyone getting in trouble. We're trying to build up marriages here, so
Right, right.
that's good. That's good. So, how can we lean into this kind of process of sanctification in marriage, and also just lean into our spouse growing us? What does this look like practically?
I think just the mindset we go into it. I think looking at it as an opportunity. Um, Marriage is God's best thing in this world as far as growing in relationships. I mean, we grow with that. We have friends, we have things like that. But as far as growing in a relationship, there's nothing that mirrors um, a relationship with God like marriage does. And he tells us that in the Bible. So learning that, and then by that, to me, it's like leaning into it. And I think, we fought so much our differences in the early part of marriage and not valuing those. And when we finally came to the point, because of knowing we were different and we were different for a reason, and God could use that, then we began to lean into that. So for us, it was accepting about that, and then seeing how God had to use that to grow each other. And so I think it's your first step is to embrace that and say, my life's going to be better. And if I'm going to get the most out of this and being married to this person, I got to lean into it.
That's good. I love that, Dr. Kim. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. It's been a different type of episode, but I've had a lot of fun. I hope our
Yeah.
listeners have had a lot of fun listening. What's your final piece of advice for your listeners today?
I would just challenge it, make your list, and then share it with your spouse.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, next week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about how to cover our spouse's vulnerabilities and what it looks like to support our spouse where they are weak. It's so important to be a good team and to build each other up. It's an important topic that we are excited to share about. So be sure to come back next week for that episode. And hey, as always, if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can email us at info@awesomemarriage.com or message us on Instagram. If you love the show, will you take a moment to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast? It is the best way to show your support of the show, and it helps the podcast get seen by more people. Have a great day and do something awesome for your marriage today.